He glanced up from his patrol truck and froze. A wild bobcat, her fur slick with rain, jumped onto his police vehicle with a tiny kitten dangling from her jaws. She braced her paws on his truck door and dropped the baby toward him. Within moments, she vanished into the rain. Most people would call it impossible, a wild predator seeking help from humans. But this was something far more than that. When the officer noticed the scars on her leg and followed the trail she'd left behind, that single mark launched an investigation, revealing a dark secret hidden in a nearby warehouse. What he discovered shattered everything. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Rain stitched the evening into a soft gray curtain over the pine flats. Headlights made low tunnels through the mist. A police-issued pickup idled at the curb, warm air fogging the windshield while the warden inside patted his pockets for keys and watched the sky for another flash of lightning. Then a striped head rose into the driver's window like a dream from the woods. Tawny cheeks beaded with rain, ears sharp as arrowheads. In her mouth, a kitten hung by the scruff, legs dangling, spots the size of raindrops. The mother bobcat balanced one paw on the door and the other across the mirror frame, steady as a bridge, and pushed the kitten toward shelter. The warden froze. Fear didn't come. Wonder did. The cat's whiskers twitched against the glass, and the kitten mewed, a sound as thin as thread. The mother held there for a heartbeat, as if measuring the human soul, then placed the kitten on the truck's floor mat and vanished into rain with the speed of a falling pine cone. He stepped onto the porch, every sense lifted. A second cry came from the fence line where an old sedan slept under moss. There, tucked in a nest of damp leaves, 4 more kittens quivered like spun sugar in a breeze. The mother swept back, took one by the scruff, and padded toward the truck. The warden did not move. He did not try to own the moment. He only widened the passenger door and lifted the floor mat to make a warm cave. When her shadow blended into the woods again, instincts turned into training. The remaining kittens went into a padded crate lined with fleece warmers. The warden set a larger transport cage beside it, baited with a smear of venison and a rolled towel steeped in kitten scent. The mother circled twice, ears flicking toward the faint cries. Then, silent as a falling snowflake, she stepped inside. The latch clicked, a small sound that changed the night. Under fluorescent lights at Mission Wildcare, staff rolled into motion like a practiced orchestra. The intake team logged weights, temperatures, and hydration scores. Kittens settled onto heat discs where tiny paws kneaded the air as if punching clouds. Their mother, soon to be called Lucy, was examined with deliberate gentleness. A ring of hairless skin scarred her hind leg, the kind of rubbed circle left by rope. The vet traced it with a gloved finger and said nothing for a long beat. A quiet was set for Lucy's room. Her crate was faced toward a low light and shielded with sheets clipped like curtains, the fabric misted with the musk of her kittens. The lactation check showed milk, but stress made it thin. The vet authorized subcutaneous fluids and a microdose of analgesic for the leg. The warden signed the chain of custody log and stood aside, hands anchored to stillness, while the team laid out warming bottles, feeding tubes, and tongs for meat that would smell like deer yet never like human hands. By dawn, the rain had wandered east. The warden returned to where the mother had called for help. Beneath the abandoned sedan, the ground told stories to anyone who could read it. Feathers snagged into tar, a coil of nylon half buried in mud, a faint chemical odor that didn't belong to sap or rain. He photographed knot patterns and measured the cord's weave. A search through seized evidence records lit up a match. That exact weave appeared in ropes used by 3 illegal breeding sites north along Route 41. A long night turned into a map. License plates were traced to supply runs. A warehouse on the edge of farm country lit up red on the board. Trail microphones had recorded faint calls there 2 nights prior, an echo thin but familiar. The warden phoned Mission Wildcare. The director contacted the State Wildlife Task Force. By afternoon, officers rolled out in staggered pairs, tires whispering on wet asphalt, every vehicle dark until the turnoff. They found the place behind a bent gate and a line of tired citrus trees. The warehouse doors hung like lips that had said too much. Inside, chain clatter echoed when the light hit metal. The team moved in with the choreography that comes from training and a hard vow not to fail. Crates lined the walls, 2 adult females, 1 male, 6 kittens. A generator thudded at the back, warming incubators meant for poultry, not a wild mother's children. The man who managed these lives paced with a wrench in one hand and his phone in the other. When officers approached, he reached not for the cats but for excuses, the way small fires reach for dry grass. Evidence bags filled. Charges were read. The youngest kittens went first into transport, first sticking up like thistles while they cried for the only scent that ever mattered to them. The warden paused at a corner pen where another female lay too thin. Ribs faint beneath fur snarled from lying on wire. She watched with an expression that wasn't fear, so much as the memory of fearing too long. No one made a hero speech. They simply opened the panel, slid in a crate lined with cedar and cloth, and waited for her to choose a better door. Back at Mission Wildcare, Lucy's enclosure was expanded to hold a den box, a platform high enough for dignity, and a corridor where her kittens could tumble without reaching the fence. Cameras with red light captured everything so human presence could be minimized. The staff rotated in silence, faces half hidden behind visors that didn't mirror eyes. Lucy paced the first days, tail tip twitching, voice low and guttural when the milk bar opened and her kittens swarmed like raindrops rolling down bark. Feeding calendars filled a whiteboard the way notes fill a hymn. Kittens fed every 3 hours by bottle when Lucy needed to rest. Nobody cooed. Nobody played. Hands stayed cool and clinical, moving like shadows so the kittens would not learn the shape of human kindness. Wildness was the goal. Love in facilities like this had to wear gloves. Names arrived late, as they should. Staff called the kittens Sprig, Pebble, Lark, Thimble, and Dipper, names small enough to remind everyone how to let go when the time came. The extra kitten rescued from the warehouse became Willow, a little older, a little tougher, the first to hiss at the camera lens and the last to yield her mouse-shaped toy. Lucy accepted her as if a missing note had found a chord. The scar on Lucy's leg slowly softened, but the story it told did not. Habituation was the enemy, so the team rewilded the daily routine. Meat arrived on tongs shoved through a shuffle of brush so it seemed to come from nowhere. Scent trails, rabbit, quail, squirrel, wove through the corridor each morning, a treasure map of nosework and pounce drills. A pulley system dragged lures in jerks, so practice looked like chasing and not like feeding. Cameras charted the growth curve the way parents chart pencil lines on a wall. Pebble favored ambushes from the platform, dropping onto siblings with the accuracy of a falling pine cone. Thimble proved brave to a fault, launching after lures that swung too high. Dipper loved water, pawing at the shallow tub until shut-eye minnows arrived from the fisheries and wildness sparked in the wet. Lark took to climbing the den box and staring at the sky as if it contained a lesson written in cloud. Sprig shadowed Lucy everywhere, matching step for step as if memorizing the map of her mother's patience. Weeks slid into a season. The kittens traded milk teeth for small daggers. Fur darkened along spines. Vets performed health checks with the speed of magicians and the caution of bomb techs. A press of syringe, a slide of stethoscope, a glance at gums paid for with tranquilizer darts, and a timer. Lucy shook off the sleep every time with a shudder and a growl that said the wild had not been domesticated. It had been bruised and was healing. Meanwhile, investigation files thickened like storm clouds. Cross-state permits told lies in tidy fonts. Financial trails fanned from the warehouse to a ring of roadside attractions where paying customers photographed kittens against fake logs. A few of those customers had reported an odd emptiness in the eyes of the animals, the way a captive flame forgets to leap. Those statements were added to the ledger of wrongs. The case would go where such cases go. The cats would go somewhere better. The pre-release enclosure took 3 volunteers, 2 techs, and a lot of cedar. It rose in a wilder corner of the facility where tall grass hid the fence and the wind carried pine and creek. Here, the team practiced what they called soft release. Not a dramatic gate fling into the naked world, but a slow melt between care and freedom. Collars waited in a padded box, lightweight, timed to drop off after a season, sending pings to a map so the story could be watched from a distance and not from a porch. Lucy entered the pre-release pen one cloud-sailed afternoon while the kittens boiled around her ankles. The gate thudded shut behind them with a sodden certainty. The pen smelled like weather more than like people. Quail scurried just outside the mesh. A rabbit watched with one eye torch bright from under blackberry. The world pressed close enough to smell, far enough to ache for. Training refined. Live prey aversion methods were balanced with ethical catch and release drills. Rodent scent trails led to puzzle boxes so tiny paws could learn the geometry of effort. The pulley lures ran faster. A hanging log swung with the weight of their leaps. Lucy taught better than any human could. She stalked the moving lure in sweeping, low-shouldered arcs that toddlers of the species memorized like a mother tongue. Storms came. California's winter pressed with wet hands. One night, the creek behind the fence rose and carried the smell of old leaves down to the pen. Lucy stood at the high platform and watched the water in a stillness that belonged to deer and to elders. The kittens climbed her spine like a living ladder and peered over her shoulders as if the world were a book they were learning to read together. 2 months later, an early wildfire rolled lightning across a distant ridge. The facility rehearsed its evacuation plan in real time. Trucks backed to pens. Carriers were labeled with grease pencil and calm hands. Lucy was darted with the smallest dose required. Pebble tried to stand between the dart and his mother. Staff switched positions to shield him without ever becoming a face he could remember. The convoy moved out under a sky the color of a struck match and settled a county away where a partner sanctuary had space and deeper wells. The fire blinked past without harm, a promise kept by weather and by firefighters whose boots learned every inch of that county the hard way. The convoy returned. The pen smelled faintly of ash and strongly of survival. Lucy greeted the space by rubbing her cheek along the old platform, reclaiming each rail as if reciting a genealogy. Then came the morning with no theatrics. Release days at Mission Wildcare were not concerts. They were well-timed, quiet offerings. The air held a pale gold common to late spring. The director checked the breeze. The warden traced a finger along the collar buckles one last time, ensuring the drop-off timed release had been set. Vets stood back. Cameras panned to catch only silhouettes and not stares. The gate opened inward, a choice presented rather than a shove. Lucy did not lunge. She stepped forward, nose low, ears high, a question mark turning into an exclamation. One by one, the young ghosts of the warehouse slipped past her knees and dashed into grass. Pebble crouched, then shot forward as if launched by joy. Lark vanished entirely, just a ripple through switchgrass. Thimble startled at a quail's wing whistle and laughed in the only way a young bobcat can, by springing higher than reason. Dipper veered to the creek and tested water with a paw, satisfied that melted snow still sang underneath. Sprig shadowed Lucy until the last possible second, and then melted into blackberries with the stealth of a secret. Lucy paused at the threshold. For a moment, the truck in the gravel lot caught her eye. The mirror reflected a small amber predator with a face both fierce and soft. A cat who had once climbed that frame in rain and offered the most fragile thing she possessed to hands she had every reason to fear. The mirror did not lie, but it did not say enough. She turned from it and disappeared into a noise the human world calls silence, and the wild calls home. Maps lit up. The first week showed a circuit, a halo of observations around the release point. By week 2, Lucy tested the creek corridor. By week 3, she pushed into healthier ground between ranch fences and national forest. Collars worked as promised. Pings arrived, dots drifted, and then one morning a garland of signals spread wide and thin, the sign of a resident finding a rhythm. The young wore no collars. Their stories would be read in scratches on bark and in the occasional imprint of a paw on sand. Mission Wildcare returned to its pace. The whiteboard was wiped, then filled again with names. A hawk with a broken wing. A fox with mange. A pair of raccoon kits who would rearrange any enclosure that underestimated their curiosity. The warden took evening shifts when he could. Sometimes he parked in the same lot where Lucy had once lifted a kitten into shelter and watched rain bead on the mirror again, listening not for thunder but for the very small sounds that change history. A month after release, trail cameras on a ranch's boundary fence caught a sequence long enough to become a legend. A bobcat with Lucy's ear notch trotted through a stand of rye, head high, shoulders rolling. Behind her, 5 smaller shapes broke formation and reformed like a school of fish. One paused at a gopher mound and performed a little dance of procession, sniff, paw, backstep, pounce, that made the rancher laugh out loud when the wildlife agent played the clip. Another day showed Lucy carrying something across a culvert, too small to see what it was, big enough to affirm that skills learned under wire now served under sky. Summer arrived under a chorus of cicadas. Lucy's range overlapped places where people walked dogs and where kids chased soccer balls. Coexistence plans went out along with county newsletters. Keep pets inside at night, secure trash, hazing protocol for bold individuals that forget to be shy. Community science projects posted new trail cam photos. Most were blurs, some were clear. All of them told the same steady story. A mother had taken back the life that had been stolen, and in giving it back, the county had given itself something too. A story about what mercy looks like when it has teeth. Late one evening, the warden visited the old warehouse site with a contractor and a grant. The building would come down. The land would be donated into a connected strip of habitat between neighborhoods. The crew walked through the echoing space one last time. The air still held a metal taste no rain could wash away. On a back wall, someone had sketched a cat in charcoal years ago, ears too round and tail too long. The drawing would crumble with the wall. The real animal was elsewhere. invisible because invisibility is safety. That was the right kind of loss. Autumn thinned the days. The collar ping slowed as the drop-off timer approached. At Mission Wildcare, staff measured new kits and took photos for internal files only. Nobody posted Lucy's images online. Fame is a kind of fence. Stories told without care can turn wild lives into maps for people who want to get too close. The facility told a different kind of story, one with blurred backgrounds and firm boundaries, one that invited awe and asked for distance. One sunrise, the collar released and fell into goldenrod. A hiker found it and brought it to the ranger station cradled in two hands, both palms open, the gesture people use when returning something that never belonged to them. The warden logged the recovery and sent the data to the state biologist. The tracker went into a drawer with a dozen others, each a small ring of proof that freedom had been more than a word said at a gate. Snow arrived in a dry whisper. The world went white and then gold, and then white again. Tracks stitched the creek like handwriting. At the facility, a child pressed her mitten to a print and squealed at how kitty big it was. Her teacher nodded and told the group about bobcats, about short tails and tufted ears, and how a mother will cross every fence the human world builds if that is what it takes to keep her children alive. The child listened with head tilted, the way kittens tilt their heads at grasshoppers. Understanding took root the way snowmelt sinks into the thirsty places. On a moonlit night, a hunter's camera caught a shot so ordinary it felt like a blessing. Lucy sat on a low boulder while the world breathed around her. She looked not at the lens, but at something beyond. Perhaps a moth. Perhaps the idea of spring. Her body was a study in readiness. Tail tip relaxed, ears open, paws settled in the compromise between rest and launch. The photo flashed across a handful of law enforcement phones and then was deleted at the warden's suggestion. Not everything sacred belongs as a file to be passed around. Some things should remain a rumor told in the voice of creeks. The warehouse was gone by spring. Grass blurred the footprint. Kids on bikes coasted along a new path that stitched two neighborhoods and a pine strip where quail dimpled the dust with their tiny feet. A sign explained that this land had been healed and why it mattered. No names, no praise. Just a simple sentence about how every county contains stories like this, and how every person can be part of writing them, if only by leaving wild things alone and calling when something feels wrong. One day, far from the sign, a rain like the first one began. Drops freckled the windshield of a truck. The mirror trembled with each touch of water. In a different century of minutes, a bobcat had risen into that frame with the courage only love can heat in a small body. That memory remained, not as a scar, but as a map. Somewhere in the quilt of grass and granite, Lucy threaded the hem of a new storm, leading her young along faint trails and old instincts. The warden's porch light glowed again. Another call would come. A red-tailed hawk, a porcupine with quills broken by a dog, a turtle lifted from a road and then returned to the wrong side by someone meaning well. The team would answer. A community would lean closer. Somewhere, a child would make space in her future for biology or for law enforcement, or simply for the habit of listening when a wild voice asks for room. Out there in the wet dark that belongs to her, Lucy eased down a slope and paused to scent the air. The world smelled like creosote and damp fur and tomorrow. Far off, a train hissed on its rails. Closer, a vole made the single wrong sound a vole is allowed, and a young bobcat, sprig or lark, pebble or thimble or dipper, learned again what every hunter eventually learns. The lesson was quick and merciful. The night went on. If the story ends, it ends like this, with a mother who once trusted a door she had every reason to fear, and with people who remembered to become small in the presence of a larger need. In that exchange, a county earned back something quiet and rare. The wild kept its mysteries. The mirror kept its reign. And in the spaces between, life went on with claws and with gentleness, both necessary, both true.